All right, guys, good afternoon. So our next speaker is Cardell Sims. He's an experienced reentry consultant with a unique personal background as a justice-involved individual within the criminal justice system. He aims to provide valuable new perspectives and practical solutions to enhance the support and services offered to formerly incarcerated individuals. So please welcome Cardell Sims.
Good afternoon. How's everyone doing? So today I'm going to be talking about understanding the cycle from incarceration to transformation. And this is some of the things that we're going to go over. We're going to go lived experience. We're also going to talk about deconstructing recidivism and what that looks like. And then the power of personal development when it comes to reentry and transformation. When I think about incarceration and transformation and understanding the cycle, it reminds me of the puzzles, putting pieces of the puzzle together, right? Everyone's a piece of the puzzle to make this work. And it reminds me of the story of this young kid. He was getting in trouble in school. And his father brought him home and said, look here, I want all your electronics. I want you to give me all your video games. You're going to do something more constructive with yourself. And the child, he's at the age where he just don't understand the difference between constructive and construction. So he's like, Dad, you finna have me with the hard hat drilling and stuff? He's like, no, you're going to do something more constructive. You're going to do something more productive with your time instead of playing with video games on your laptop and it's causing you get in trouble in school. So the dad goes out to Toys R Us. And I'm like, what's Toys R Us? But he goes out to Toys R Us when they was open. This is an old story, you know, they shut down now. But he went out to Toys R Us and he went to look for a puzzle. So when he walked into Toys R Us, he goes to the guy and says, can you point me to your aisle where the puzzles is at? The guy points him to the aisle. He goes out to the aisle. He walks down the aisle. He sees his first puzzle. The first puzzle is a puzzle of a lion, tiger, and a bear. Just want to make sure y'all paying attention. So he said, nah, that's going to be too easy. It's going to be too easy. He said, he goes to the next puzzle. It's a prehistoric puzzle. It's got the dinosaur on it, that one dinosaur that flies and Just want to make sure you're paying attention. So he says, no, that's going to be too easy. So he walks down a little bit more. He sees a puzzle of the world. He says, oh, yeah, I got my son. It's going to take him a while to put this together. He purchased the puzzle. He goes back home. The son's sitting at the dining room table. He puts the puzzle down on the table and says, look, it's going to take you a couple weeks to get this puzzle done. But when you get done, you get your electronics back. The son, he's mad. He ain't trying to do no puzzle. He ripped the plastic off the puzzle, took the top off of it, put it to the side, dumped all the puzzle pieces out. He started filling on the puzzle. When you fill it on the puzzle, what's on the other side of a puzzle? Just want to make sure you're paying attention. Cardboard. So as the son's sitting there filling on the puzzle pieces, and he's looking at the cardboard side, he sees something that kind of looked like an eyeball. So now he's curious. So he's running through all these puzzle pieces. He's flipping them over and he runs across another piece on the cardboard. Looked like a finger. So before you know it, the son's sitting there and he's putting his puzzle together backwards. After about 3 hours, he got it done. He takes the boxes of the puzzle, flats them down, slides them up under the puzzle, flips it over, mats it down. There it is, the world put together. He runs in the room, he tells Dad, man, I'm done with the puzzle. Now his dad's in there watching the sports game. He's like, man, quit playing with me. You ain't done with the puzzle that fast. There's no way. He's like, no, for real, Dad, I really am done. And his father's like, if I get up out this bed and that puzzle ain't done, it's going to be a problem. He's like, no, Dad, I really am done. So the father gets up. He goes into the dining room. There it is, the world put together. He's excited now, and he's like, man, how'd you do this? He started putting out his phone, taking pictures. He all on social media. Man, my son's this morning. He put this puzzle together in 3 hours. So once he got done doing all that, he sat down with his son. He said, son, you got to tell me how you put this puzzle together so fast. The son said, well, Dad, on the other side of the puzzle, there was a man. When I put the man together, the world came together. And that's what recidivism is about, putting the individual and the man or the women together so that the world to come together. I'm Cardell Sims. I'm the founder of On the Inside Reentry Academy, personal development academy that I run in Western Reception Diagnostic Correction Center. I've been running it since 2022 to 2023. I'm the host of the On the Inside Empowerment Workshop Tour. What I did last year, I took a team of successful formerly incarcerated educators along with former correctional educators that lost their job during COVID. We went out on the road. We went to 8 different states. We visited 27 institutions, hosted 34 workshops, full-day reentry workshops. We hosted vision board, goal setting, personal development, entrepreneurship, career readiness, mental health and wellness, along with connecting with the reentry resources in that state, in that area, and getting them signed up for the resources that they need. I'm also the host of the Reentry Journey podcast, a podcast that we highlight the journey after incarceration, on the obstacles that you face. How did you get to where you get? Because a lot of guys coming out don't have the mentor, they don't have the blueprint. So on that podcast, I show that blueprint. I'm also a reentry peer support specialist and a master certified empowerment life coach, a 9-time author and a national speaker. I'm an entrepreneur. I own 2 businesses. And then I also am the head of a reentry advocacy for Sober in 40. Sober in 40 is a digital app that is an addiction program, a 40-day addiction program. So if you got clients that might be working and they can't get to work to the addiction program in time, the conflict schedule, they can just download the app, get on there, watch the videos. It's going to ask them some questions. And the questions that is asked is generated off their response. We use certain keywords and things like that, so we get red flags and things of that nature. The case management, caseworker, parole officer knows. And then I'm also a reentry consultant. I do a lot of reentry consulting for tech companies that's looking to break into the reentry space, looking to get into prisons and everything like that. But most importantly, that's who I used to be. You all used to be my enemies. Caseworkers, POs, correction officers, and everything. I grew up in a impoverished neighborhood. My mother had me when she was 16 years old. I had an older sister. She had her 13 years old. By the time I was a teenager, I was involved in gangs, and my mother was on crack. My father wasn't nowhere around in the picture. At 15 years old, I was introduced to the justice system. I caught my first case, first-degree assault, attempted murder at the Missouri State Fair in a race riot. From that point on, I sat in juvenile detention center for 6 months while they determined out what was going to happen with me. Was they going to charge me as an adult? But because I can play basketball, I had coaches come and speak on my behalf, talk to the judge, explain my living situation, the situation was going on with my mother, and they gave me a chance. They said, Mr. Sims, we're going to put you in a foster home with the stipulation that you graduate high school. I went to one foster home. It just didn't work. They put me right back in the same neighborhood, 2 houses down to where I was just living at. My family tried to go down there and fight the foster home people. It was all kind of crazy. They was breaking my friends, was breaking me out the foster home. But my coach recognized that. He said, that's not going to work. He put me in another foster home. So during the whole time I was in foster home, my old mindset was, I'm trying to get back to the neighborhood. I just wanted to graduate so I can get back to the block, to get back to the neighborhood. So when I graduated, that's exactly where I went, to the block, to the neighborhood. But I had a basketball scholarship. So I had a basketball scholarship at the home, State Fair Community College. That's where I played college basketball at. But during this time, I'm living a double life. During the day, I'm going to school, playing basketball. As soon as that's over with, I'm on the block, hanging out, gang banging, selling drugs. That's how I paid my way through college. In between my freshman and sophomore year, I signed a letter of intent to play at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. But I also caught a case right after that, an assault case. I sat in the county jail for 60 days, lost that scholarship, finished up my second year at college at State Fair, and I got a scholarship to go play basketball at the University of West Georgia. I take the same mindset, same mentality down to the University of West Georgia and continue the same regimen. My senior year, our last basketball game, once we lost, I dropped out of school. I was full-fledged into the streets, trafficking drugs from Georgia to Missouri. Within 6 months, I caught my first case. I sat in the county jail for 6 months, got probation, got out, went right back to the same neighborhood, same block, same gang, started doing the same thing over and over. Because I knew the system. I knew those before me that was involved in the system. it was one thing on probation. I already knew when I walked out of the county jail on probation, I was going to go through this phase. Y'all know the phase. This is the early 2000s. You drop 130, what happens? You go to the outpatient. You drop 230, what happens? Now you're going to go do 30 days. You drop 330, you're going to go do a 120. I went through all them phases. I went through the 120. While in 120, I had cases pending. I get taken out the 120, sent back to the county jail. I go to trial. I lost. I get sentenced to 19 years in Missouri Department of Corrections. I walked into the prison. Some of y'all might know this prison. I walked into the prison, 23 years old with a 19-year sentence. And as I walked in receiving, there was a red sign on the wall. There was a sign on the wall written in red letters. It said, leave all your hopes and dreams behind. That was Missouri State Penitentiary, known as the Walls. So that's what I did. 23 years old, 19-year sentence. Left all my hopes and dreams behind. Fighting, stabbing, everything I was involved in. I wasn't the model prisoner. I was the one getting smart. I was the one bucking. You got to call the cert. I'm red tagging. I'm doing everything. Luckily, the walls were shutting down. They sent me to Licking. Well, the thing that happened with Licking was when they first opened, because of this new prison, they was training the staff for level 2 and 3. But the prison was 5. So when they got out all the 2 and 3s, they brought us 5s in. It was wide open. So the first 2 years I was in Licking, we was on lockdown for 20 months out of 24 months, stabbing, rioting, things of these nature. So a Senate bill passed, my 5th year in, the Senate bill passed. I was up for immediate parole because the Senate bill passed. It cut the time on one of the cases that I lost in trial in half on the mandatory minimum. I was up for immediate parole. I had the quickest parole hearing in history. Trust me, I did. The guard walked me to the door. He went to the bathroom. I went in. They said, Mr. Sims, you are a part of the problem. You got a few more years with us. What do you think about institutional behavior and drug treatment? I told him I'd take the institutional behavior and drug treatment. My criminal mentality knew quick I get there, what happened? Quick, I'm gonna get home. So that was my whole parole hearing. They gave me my out date, slid on the door 2 months later, 4-year release date. They sent me to Al Gore. I got the opportunity to work at the governor's mansion. So I was working at the governor's mansion, serving drinks and things like that. Still wasn't doing nothing productive with my time, but then they called me for treatment. Went to treatment at St. Joseph, got out, went right back to the same neighborhood, same block, same gang. My mama house is dead center of the block. I tried to get a job at a roofing company. They paid me $8 an hour, over $700 a month in child support. So that didn't work. That was just an excuse for me to go back to the streets because that's where my mentality was. Went back to the streets. Within 1 year, I caught another drug case. My mama's brother's son set me up. Violated my parole. I go back to prison while fighting a new case. Spent a year and a half in prison fighting a new case. Beat it on the technicality because he wasn't going to show up in court. They released me. Same neighborhood, same block, same gang. This time when I get out, we in the middle of a gang war. Some people get shot, guy get killed, ATF, the feds come in town, they violated me for association. While I'm sitting back in prison, they gave me a child support case. Sitting in prison for another year and a half. Get out to the same block, same neighborhood, same, I know y'all like, man, this is crazy. But yeah, that was my mentality. But this time when I get out, I'm under federal investigation. So within 2 years of my release then, they came and picked me and 37 other people up. They took us to Kansas City, Western District, Charles Whittaker, I know the name of that, Charles Whittaker Courthouse. They stood me in there, 37 people, they handed us all the paper, our indictment paper. On this indictment paper, it had conspiracy charges, gang activity, aiding and abetting, murder for hire, 10 to 20, 5 to 40, 10 to life. I wasn't even worried about none of that. I'm not 23 this time with a 19-year sentence. I'm 35 with a fresh federal case. I'm standing there looking around. I see people I done caught cases with that we done beat. I done see uncles, cousins, everybody. My whole neighborhood, whole blocks in here. And the only thing I can come up with to ask myself, why do I keep finding myself in these situations? Because the only thing on that paper that stood out to me was the heading. Forget the charges and the time. the heading said, the United States of America versus Cardell Sims. That's how it was. What? So I asked myself, why do I keep finding myself in these situations? Only answer I came up with, I keep putting myself in these situations. So from that point on, standing there in front of the judge, I didn't say nothing. I made a silent oath to myself that I would be better whenever I walked out of prison than I was standing there that day. They sent me to Bates County. No outside, no nothing. All I had was books. And I read over and over, knowledge itself, science itself, seed of the soul, rich dad, poor dad, the alchemy, the richest man in Babylon. I read so many books. Not only was I reading books, I was taking notes. Read about how to set goals. So I read the book How to Set Smart Goals by Brian Tracy, and this taught me how to set goals. So every day I started setting goals for myself. I'm going to read this amount of pages in this book. I'm going to take this note. I'm going to get on the email machine to ask somebody to look up this information. So I spent 32 months in Bates County fighting the federal case, doing the same regimen over and over, day in, day out. I wasn't reading the hood novels, none of that. So I ended up going to court, getting sentenced to an extra 57 months on top of the 32 months that I sat in Bates County. And they sent me to United States Penitentiary, Leavenworth. That was just like going to the walls. And so I get to Leavenworth, and I want to get back on my regimen, but I can't walk around the compound because something that's different than the state and the federal. When you get to federal prison, you can't go nowhere on the compound except the child hall until your paperwork come in to show that you ain't telling nobody or hurt no kids or nothing like that. So I had to wait 3 weeks for that to come in. So not only did I have that paperwork come in, I had all the notes and everything that I was reading, I had them send that in as well. Continue my regimen. This time, I'm thinking to myself, when I get released, I got to have some skills. I got to have something I can utilize. Because up to this time, all I did was get out, sell dope, get out, sell dope, get out, sell dope. So this is my personal development phase I'm in. So I'm figuring out things about me, my skills, my interests. I'm looking at the programs. I just started programming. Started off with janitorial service. Took the janitorial service, graduated that. Then I ended up taking the hotel hospitality and lodging. Ended up graduating that. It was a year class. Graduated that and became a certified concierge. Then I ended up taking Serve Safe. Ended up becoming certified in food preparation. Then I took this class called Consciousness and Success. Now, when I walked in this class, I'm thinking they're going to teach me how to make a lot of money. You say success because in my mind, success was equated to money. But in this class, they taught me about affirmations and vision boards. I applied that to my daily regimen. I woke up every morning and said, thank you. Before my feet hit the ground, I told myself I am greater than the situation that I'm in. The situation I was in was prison, United States Penitentiary, Leavenworth. I did that for 6 months until I had faith. Because a lot of times I was operating off belief. See, belief is what we think is the truth. Faith is what we know to be the truth. So it took me 6 months before that belief turned to faith. That faith was, I knew I was greater than the situation that I was in. But the question is, what you gonna do about it? And I was already working on that. So for 6 months, started putting my vision board together, everything. So when I woke up, I'm looking at everything that I wanted to be. I got my life laid out exactly what it's going to be like when I walked out of prison. I knew I was going to be an author. I knew I was going to be a speaker. I knew I was going to be a life coach. I knew I was going to be a business owner. I knew I was going to come back in prisons and get the game to stop recidivism to those who were just like me. Because while I was sitting in federal prison, I was watching too many guys come back saying, you just can't make it off federal probation without coming back. I told them, I'm going to show you how, and then when I do, I'm going to come back in to teach you how. And I made that my goal. And when I walked out of Leavenworth, all I had was 4 brown legal folders. No money, no nothing. Them brown legal folders had the vision board, it had the goals, the plans, and the ideas. I went down to Springfield to the halfway house. When I got there, now this is the crazy part. During my personal development phase, I told myself, I'm not taking no factory job, right? Because I knew that was a setup for me. Not saying for everybody else. I got ADHD. I can't sit in no factory like that all day. I'm going to quit. Once I quit, that's my excuse to get back into the game. I leverage it. I use that as an excuse. So I told myself I'm not working in no factory. But I had a list of jobs that fit around my skills and my interests. So when I got to the halfway house, they handed me this paper, had all factory jobs on it. But at the bottom of it had the one job, it was the lowest paying job. All these other factory jobs, $17, $18 an hour. The last job was $11 an hour. It was telemarketing. That's the only place I went. I went to the telemarketing place. It was a young guy. He came running out there full of energy. He's like, man, you at the halfway house? I'm like, yeah. He's like, yeah, my brother's out there, man. I can get you a job. You gonna work? I said, yeah, I'm gonna work. I'm gonna show up. He's like, you know how to read a script? I'm like, yeah, I know how to read a script. So I read the script. He said, come back and you start the next day. The next day when I walked into the meeting, they started their meeting off with affirmations. Then every telemarketer started setting their goals for the day. I knew that's where I belonged because that was my regimen, affirmations and goals. I was in a halfway house for 4 months. This was my daily regimen. I woke up at 5, rode the bus to work, got there at 7. Got off work at 2, rode the bus back to the halfway house, got back at 4. I ate my dinner. Then I went to the computer lab and I started typing up my books that I wrote while incarcerated. Because I knew the books was going to be my way of making extra money. But I happened to go to the streets because a guy came in and said, yeah, man, you can sell books on Amazon and stuff like that. I'm like, what? I can write my own book and sell it and make money? He was like, yeah. And so I wrote 3 books. I had the time. So I wrote 3 books, got out in the halfway house, typed them up. Once I typed them up for a couple hours, worked on them, I took my life coaching courses for 2 hours. I did that for 4 months straight in the halfway house. When I walked out, I had 1 life coaching diploma, 3 books typed up. I went and got a job, stocking the Dollar Tree, 5 in the morning, from 5 to 10, listening to podcasts on growth. From 12 to 7, I worked at the sporting goods store next door as a sales associate. Little did I know these jobs was going to help me in my speaking and customer service skills and people skills. 6 years ago, I wouldn't be able to stand in front of all people and be able to talk. But because of the telemarketing helped me become a better speaker, and then the sales associate helped me to interact with people, I acquired these skills. So one thing about it was, every time I got out, I went home. Every time I went home, I went back. So I knew home wasn't the place for me. So I went home for a few months, worked them jobs, and then I ended up moving. And when I moved, I got another job in marketing and promoting. But I'm still building my business on the side. I got a business license and everything. And so while I'm in building this business and I'm in marketing and promoting, I used to host my own speaking engagements and sell my books and t-shirts. I would host the speaking engagements for free, sell t-shirts and books to make money. Money was my thing of why I kept going back to prison. Now remind you, I still owe $700 a month in child support. So let's break that down. 40 hours a week, $11 an hour, $440. After taxes, $275, $300. After child support, half of that. Then I was on state probation, state parole, and federal probation. I had to pay fine for each and every one of them. So after I was done with all that, literally a week, I probably was operating off 50 and 60 bucks. But I knew this one before I walked out. I already looked at all of this. That's why my plan was to sell books, cut grass, do everything I can to make extra money. And then COVID hit. Took me out to work. But the crazy part is, right when COVID hit, I wrote a book about my life because my mentor told me, you need to share your story, man. It's crazy. I wrote a book called Inmate to Inspiration, and it took off. Then I started my podcast. As soon as I was off federal probation in 2021, 2 days after that, someone who read my book said, Mr. Sims, I got a federal speaking grant, and I would like for you to go on tour back into the prisons and share your story. And that's when I started doing this. My book landed me in the reentry space. My book landed me in the prisons. And so I went on that speaking tour. The crazy part is they paid me. They paid me $1,200. They paid for the travel, flight, everything. And so while I was doing the speaking engagement, I was doing surveys. What do we need on the inside? I already know because I've been here. But I wanted to see what I thought matched everything else. And one of the main things was we wanted programs from those who've been through it. We want programs from those who actually know what the obstacles are and been through the steps. And so I started designing my own program on the Inside Reentry Academy because I know for a fact, no belief, none of that, not no guess. I know for a fact that reentry starts on the inside, a prison and a self. And so I built a personal development program on the Inside Reentry Academy, walked to St. Joe, a prison I used to be, but not walk. I live right not too far from it. Went to St. Joe, prison I was once in, sat down with the wardens, shared my story, shared my program. We went through the program and they let me in. And when I came in, I changed the environment in that prison because now they seeing someone who actually been through it doing what I do. Not only when I create the program, I created a virtual side because I wanted to make as big an impact that I possibly could. And every time I met with a warden, program, a coordinator, a reentry coordinator, it was always Zoom, Teams, things of that nature. So I created a virtual side that allowed me to have a class using the same method. So now I run a virtual side in Arizona, in Kingman Prison in Arizona. And so I've been doing that for the last 3 or 4 years, and that's how I got to doing the workshop tour. So now in 2024, I'm one of the leading mergers in the reentry field, all started off from what I was doing on the inside. That's my journey through the justice system. Let's look at some of the key turning points and realization of my story. Well, biggest key turning point was me versus the United States of America. Standing there knowing that I was the reason. Accountability.